Technology is not a new concept. It has been around since the beginning of time. The wheel, the internal combustion engine, and computers, all examples of technology. Innovation in technology always bring about change to how we work, play, learn, and live. The difference today is the pace of that change. We are no longer looking at small incremental changes to business processes, but instead radical, transformative, disruptive changes to fundamental ideas and our way of life. Look at what technology and mobility are doing to the office, retail, industrial, and other sectors of the real estate industry. Every aspect of commercial and corporate real estate is in play. 10-year leases to one-day desk reservations, transportation and parking changes, robots responding to tenant and customer needs, artificial intelligence predicting asset and market fluctuations, smart leases, connected buildings, complex information management solutions. The list goes on. We are entering what some are calling the age of acceleration, a time where technological advancements accelerate the development of next-generation ideas and capabilities, a time where executive leadership no longer considers innovation as tactical but strategic, a time where every aspect of operations and the fundamental question of how we use real estate must be discussed, evaluated, debated, and quite possibly transformed. The commercial and corporate real estate industry and all of its associated processes is at a point where the changes are going to occur faster than ever before, and we must make the decision to fully embrace technology and innovation, or someone else will. The age of acceleration is upon us, and learning how to navigate the impacts to our industry is critical to the long-term success of every commercial and corporate real estate organization. We hope to see you the first week of June at Realcomm and IBcon, which will be held at the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas. We invite you to join in on the 20-year conversation on how technology, automation, and innovation will continue to change the way we design, build, lease, operate, transact, and use commercial and corporate real estate.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Realcomm 20. Please welcome to the stage Managing Partner Realcomm, Howard Berger.
Let's see, let me get my clicker up here. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Las Vegas and the opening general session for our 20th annual Realcomm and our 7th annual IBcon conferences. So since we got together last June, we've seen and heard a lot of new ideas, seen a lot of technology solutions, and some very compelling case studies. The advances in tech and innovation are increasing at a rapidity never before experienced, and it's requiring our organizations to adapt to changes coming at us at an unprecedented rate. So it's appropriate that this year's conference theme is navigating the age of acceleration. And over the next couple of days, we're going to explore this paradigm shift, examine a lot of great new solutions and ideas, but also introduce you to the best of what we found out there. Now, before we begin, there's some important folks I'd like to thank. In putting this conference together, our Realcomm team has been privileged and honored to be working with some extraordinary folks in the industry. Thanks to all of you who supported this remarkable event, both in small and large ways. There's no way I can personally thank everyone who contributed. It's a very long list. But there are a few special folks that I want to acknowledge before we get underway. First of all, I'd like to thank our general session sponsors, Yardi, our general session keynote sponsor, Altus, our general session event sponsor, and JLL, our general session supporting sponsor. Thank you, general session sponsors, for making this general session happen. Next, I'd like to thank this year's Realcomm and IBcon Advisory Council chairman. So for Realcomm, we have Jesse Carrillo from Hines, Senior Vice President and CIO from Hines, Chandra Dandapani, Chief Digital and Technology Officer from CBRE, and Scott Zimmerman, Chief Information Officer from Centerpoint. And from IBcon, we have Arv Gupta, Senior Vice President, National Operations for Cadillac Fairview, Steve Lefkowitz, Vice President, Global Facilities for Time Warner, and Daryl Smith, Director of Central Facilities Operations for Google. Now, in addition to being 6 of the busiest people on the planet, these folks generously gave their time and were instrumental in helping us set the course for the direction of these twin conferences. So I want to say thank you, Chandra, Jesse, Arv, Daryl, Steve, and Scott. I'd also like to thank the men and women of our Realcomm, IBcon, and Real Estate Investment Management Advisory Councils. There's too many of them to thank personally, so what I'm going to ask is if you're on the Advisory Council, please stand. Chairman also. So, folks, take a moment to look around. These men and women made themselves available virtually around the clock to help ensure that we're bringing the right people, ideas, and stories together. They were instrumental in the program planning, and a number of them have taken active roles as speakers or moderators, contributing ideas and perspective. It's truly an honor to work with such great folks. So thank you, Chairman, and thank you, advisors. Next, I'd like to thank our conference sponsors. Now, our sponsors do a lot more than just write checks. They provide intellectual support. Many bring their clients to share their stories. Our relationships with these great sponsors has contributed greatly to the overall program and the continuity of both the Realcomm and the IBcon communities. So first, I'd like to thank our Platinum Elite sponsor, Yardi. Yardi's always been there with the highest level support for the conference. Thank you, Yardi. Next, our Platinum sponsors, Altus, Corning, JLL, MRI, and Tritium. Thank you, Platinum sponsors. I'd also like to thank our Gold sponsors, Honest Buildings, Assess, RE, Restore Point, Bueno, Dell, and Intel. Thank you, Gold sponsors. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you, the attendees, for being with us here today, and have a great conference. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage co-founder and CEO of Realcomm, Jim Young.
Good morning, everybody. Here we are. This is the 20th time. I look at the faces out there. A lot I recognize, lots I don't, so welcome. As you can imagine, a 20-year journey is pretty significant, especially in the technology sector. And it's, as you're going to see in a couple minutes, a lot of ups and a lot of downs. But before I actually take you through 20 years in 9.5 minutes, or however many minutes Sherry will shave off the timer, as she's been doing for so many years, I just want to give you some context. To put on, people call this a conference. It's more than a conference, and I think more of a community. As you see, many of the people in this room who've literally been coming to this conference for 20 years, the friendships have developed, fierce competitors sharing information, and I actually think it's that community and that level of collaboration that has allowed an industry that's typically moves pretty slow, the commercial and corporate real estate industry, to get through these technology issues quickly, to discern what is real, what is not, to make mistakes. And when you see people sitting in rooms, collaborating and sharing at a level that's not normal, you know there's something special. So first and foremost, I would like to say thank you to all of you who have been coming over the last 20 years and have made up this wonderful community. I'd also like to thank my team who make all this stuff happen. If you were at Realcomm 99, this was not what the stage looked like. For those of you who are in Orlando with us, we dragged lamps from the lobby out into the stage because we did not have a budget for a set like this. So your participation has allowed us to consistently up the bar and give you what you deserve. A little example is the LED screens. We introduced this last year. It's going to change our industry, and as you go to the session rooms, you're going to see that we try to be good stewards of the revenue we receive, and and give it back to you in a conference that you deserve. One other thank you I would like to say is to the CIO community. You guys gave a pretty good, very nice video yesterday, and I was asked to play it here, and I said I don't think I could. So thank you guys for that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through 20 years, hopefully in around 10 minutes. And the purpose for this is to give some context to this journey because, you know, if you're just in this for a couple of years, you go, wow, this is crazy. There's so much opportunity. If you've been around for the 20 years, you're going, why does it take so long? If you've also been around for 20, you know that we've had some ups and downs. But I think if we can get through it that quick in 20 years, you'll see just what this means for our industry. But more importantly, consider it the foundation for what we're about to do next, which is put up some walls and some roofs and then furnish the house. Because, and one of the other things we're going to do in this general session is we're going to give out Lifetime Achievement Awards. We've never done this before. It's a new award, and at the end, we're going to give out 20 awards to people who have really been instrumental in laying that foundation. So let's get started. There it is. That's a brochure cover from 20 years. So 1999, first year. We talked about intranets, extranets. Anybody remember this? Who was there? This was the first iPad. We actually had it at the conference. Okay, this was Best of CES in 1999. Bill Gates came and took a look at it. A year later, the mobile computing platform was born, and the poor gentleman who built this was out of business. But how would you like to take a selfie with that? I mean, I don't know, it's kind of hard. But at that conference in '99, we were talking about mobility and what it meant to a real estate professional. We also had some cloud software platforms at the conference where people were, you know, putting their data up to the cloud. And we were also arguing about home RF and 802.11, you know, which one would survive, and we obviously know the answer to that. We also talked about digital conference rooms, as I said, intranets, extranets. The big thing there, we were trying to figure out what projectors to buy. Digital cameras, right? We actually carried separate things, not in our phones. And the phones looked like something from Star Trek, okay? And we actually had some of those early PDAs and phones. And you'd think, now we take it so for granted, but back then it was new stuff. All right, 2000, oh, here we go, .com, lots of money. So busy, we sold out the entire conference. Fire marshal shut it down. We had to move our exhibits. We needed another exhibit hall, and we had to build a tent in the parking lot across the street to host our general session. It was a disaster. It rained. We had water coming down. But one fun thing from that, we planned a blue screen freeze because everybody's kind of, you know, still nervous about tech, and we started the general session, and we intentionally put the blue screen up there, and it freaked everybody out. They said, oh, yeah, your presentation froze, and I said, I was just kidding. But that was a very interesting year as we were probably, you know, midway through .com. And there were parties. Oh, were there parties. You were rated at your party by how real your Cuban cigar was or how big the shrimp was. And we partied like it was 1999 plus 1 year. We also had some very smart people. David Gensler, the CEO of Gensler. At the time, Brett White, the CEO of CBRE. And that guy with the long hair, he was one of the 5-6 people that bought you Google Earth. Keyhole was at our conference, almost out of business, couldn't make payroll, and JR brought all of his digital aerial photography, stitched it together, and created really what was the foundation for Google Earth. And two little companies called CoStar and LoopNet had tiny little booths at Realcomm 2000. We were also trying to figure out mobility. There's the Keyhole platform. And then, oh, that looks like a familiar face. John Gilbert, God bless him, in 2000 was talking about the wired digital building, 55 Broad Street. It wasn't everything we're going to be talking about for the next 2 days. It was, let's just simply bring broadband into the building. That was a big idea back in 2000. So John, thank you for your persistence. Everybody was there. I mean, you know, we attract, I think, record crowds. All the associations were represented. And we actually teleported somebody from London. A three-dimensional person showed up. That person, I was at one podium, he was the other, he was in London. He looked more real and more healthy than I did. And 2,000 people were going, oh my God, look, he's on the stage, but he's not on the stage. And it freaked people out. I question, though, why this hasn't made it. This was a good idea, and I'm surprised this technology hasn't evolved. We also had a guy who talked about putting sensors on cement trucks, and we had a celebrity, Roger was there, and it was really great to meet him. All right, 2001, we webcasted, we had Innovation Showcase, we had big TVs, now they're like that. So we've come a long way. We did our first tour to a colo. And again, the parties. Oh, the parties, but that was it. And I remember the day the phone stopped ringing, and we all knew it. And that dot-com bubble crash was so horrific. And that led us to 2002, where not a lot of people came to the conference. It was in Vegas. They did not go to any sessions. All they did was drink and gamble. We didn't see them. The vendors were coming up, where are all the attendees? And I go, I don't know. But it was 2002, for you all know, was a tough year for a lot of reasons. But we survived, right? You know, it was a tenacious group. But the euphoria and the hype was over. That year, we also started writing our advisories. We talked about network appliances, connecting building to the internet, and then integrated information systems. So that was kind of the beginning we chronicled it. 2003, big thing was internet alleys. Still fun, trying to figure out mobility. And webcams, digital, connected building stuff starting to make its way. And then we also started thinking, we were told we got to go outside the U.S. to see innovation. And we said, the U.S. is the most innovative place. And they said, well, you got to go to Asia. So we did. In 2004, San Francisco is where we held the event. That's not the real Arnold. Pretty much getting back to basics. Wireless started coming in. But in 2004, we also went to Asia. And that really changed everybody's trajectory. We saw things that we'd never seen before. Came back with all these big, wild ideas. Partnered with BOMA in 2005, thinking that we need to get this technology closer to property managers. Peter Pike, for those of you who remember the whole dot-com era, was a celebrity at the time. We started our CIO roundtable. Yeah, we were worried about things like Skype and instant messaging, things we just so take for granted today. We were still worrying about video conferencing that wasn't delayed. Again, in 2006, we went back with BOMA, thinking we got to get this technology in front of the people who are running and operating the buildings. And this was the year we started we started realizing that math and science was starting to struggle a little bit in the United States, and we started raising money for math and science at our poker tournaments. And you can see in the back now we also got our eye on Dubai, because we're told we got to follow the money. So we're thinking, okay, we got to go over to the Middle East. We just got done from Asia, and now we got to go over to the Middle East to see the innovation. And we went to the Middle East. We had 3 events there over the next couple of years. And these guys, you follow the money. We saw things that we still haven't seen to this day. But after they crashed, a lot of the good ideas that actually were cultivated in that environment made its way back here. Now we start 7, it starts to get a little more serious. We're talking about fire extinguishers on the network. You guys made fun of me yesterday about that. When fire extinguishers are on the network, we got a really, truly smart building. Jim Whalen, Boston Properties, opened up their co-location or their operations center to us. We're starting to talk about solars on roofs, and then portals. And we called it a lot of different things, but back then it was portals. There we're going to Dubai. We raised some money for Tech Boston, and then here we go again. Okay, it was .com, and you all, I'm sure, not everybody's old enough to remember what that was like. And we had to pull in the money. The next couple of years were about NOI and cutting your budgets. There's Sandy. He didn't look happy. He just nobody looked happy in 2009. I mean, for us it was a tough year. For the industry it was a tough year. And there's John again. But John was he was relentless. And you'll see a theme going on here. 2009, we're talking about virtual property managers, invoicing. Now we're starting to get back to some fundamentals, accounting, which is really healthy, right? We're just saying, let's not talk about hype, let's get to business. There's Paul, another steadfast supporter, Paul Quinn in 2010. We're back in Vegas. Not in this hotel. In this hotel, if you were in the general session, you had to be careful because the ceiling tiles were falling down. It was not a good facility, but given the time frame is what was appropriate. We had our 7th annual CIO roundtable, and see, now we're starting again to focus on the property and facility managers, saying you got to come learn about technology. We did have some fun, though. For those of you who went to Speedway Las Vegas, we drove some fast cars in 210 and had a blast then, just like we had fun the other night. 2011, GSA, PBS comes in. The big guys in the room, they start to really bring some muscle to the idea of smart buildings. And then the conversations were serious. You could start to see people were, again, after 2008, we're getting back to business. And we raced cars again. This time we didn't drive them, we sat in them and they drove fast. 2011, there's GSA in the White House, social media. We're starting to talk about social media. Again, everything we take for granted today. Data analytics. We've been talking about data analytics for a long time. and we're going to talk about it again in the next couple of days. Smaller and smarter for real estate. Think about what's happening with our malls and our retail and our office buildings. You know, 2011 we started to see that. Korea starts putting these things on walls and lets you shop. iPads, you know, that thing finally starts to turn into something we can't carry around. And we had parkour in the general session. We wanted to bring some energy, so kids were doing some crazy things. All right, 12, mobile apps are starting to get big. Microsoft's starting to do their big thing with their smart campus, and now we got GSA and Microsoft lending credence to the idea of smart buildings. And then energy was kind of the topic that we were talking about back then as well. SharePoint, we're starting to get back to the operational side. Cloud continues. Even though we had cloud in 99, it's by 12 that people are starting to really understand, yeah, we can move our data up there and we don't need our own data centers in our building. Smart workplaces, the WeWorks and the shared code, we actually started chatting about in 2012. Tridell's changing the skyline in Canada. SharePoint continuing, and then procure to pay, some of the fundamental stuff, good stuff. We launched our conference live, which you'll see out in the exhibit floor. Delegations from China came in 2013, great keynote speakers, and we had Google Glass. Dave Lorenzini sat up here and showed you Google Glass, which did not work, but it was all with the beginning of the wearables phase. Big data, again, GSA showing some real resolve and some real progress, and then Daryl collecting 500 million building data points on the campus per day. We knew that smart buildings were real. Data scientists, we started talking about how maybe there's a new position in a real estate company, and then 3D printing. We're starting to see the early stages of that. 5 years later, 18, we're still not 100% there. 14, we looked at the curve, innovation curve, which was important. It's still important to this day. We debate, when are we leaving early adopter and getting into early majority? We had robots on the stage. There's Lou Horn on the bottom right. CBRE was introducing new office concepts, shared space, things that are, again, in today's conversation, but were really starting to percolate back then. And again, in Shanghai Tower was probably the most innovative building in the world. We added the B to IoT, called it Building IoT. 35% of the space in corporates aren't being used. We're seeing things shrink, get smarter, and then again, the Internet of Things is really starting to heat up. Crowdfunding pops into our industry. Saying there's maybe a new way to use technology to buy real estate. The paper lease is coming, no more paper. And then Taubman, as well as all the retailers, started to wire the malls and make them smart. And really, I think that the retail side took a leadership position. Next gen workplace, we actually put offices in malls now. We haven't seen that at full scale, but we're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months. Wearables are starting to make their way. If you guys remember this guy, he really tweaked us. He swore. He's a really cantankerous guy. Robert Enton helped us get him as our keynote. Good speaker. The exhibit floor was starting to feel tight again, a lot of good energy. This is now where all the money, the 8 to 10 billion that we're going to talk about a lot today, started to come into our industry. A lot of capital starts coming in. 13, actually started in 9, but right around 15, we're seeing new events pop up. Every city's having real estate tech events. Sensors are coming in, microgrids, GSAs continuing with March and 15. SMAC, remember SMAC, Social Mobile Analytics Cloud, cybersecurity. This is when we started having our little clandestine meetings that resulted in a jam-packed room of 250 people yesterday talking about cyber, business intelligence. We have a new word for data now. It's called BI. Now it's called AI. Technology innovation, millennials. We're starting to wonder, how do the millennials impact all this? DAS is still annoying us. Everybody's cell phone's working, hopefully. It's still an issue. And then augmented and virtual reality started to peak in. 2016, we went to Silicon Valley. This was a pivotal year. Phase 5 starts. That guy right there says, wait a minute, you guys think we're done? We're going to bring you augmented, AR, virtual, blockchain, autonomous. We're like, hold on. We don't even have phase 4, cloud and mobile, fully reconciled. We spent $10 billion. We need to reconcile. And he says, I don't care. Silicon Valley and other places are bringing a whole new generation of technologies, and you got to deal with it. And last, I think it was that year, was the theme we started coming up saying the real estate industry operates at 25 to 50. Tech today is 100 miles an hour. Tech tomorrow is 200. The biggest question we have to answer for the next few years is how do we reconcile the speed of our industry with the speed of this technology? Because it is not slowing down, hence the age of acceleration. We had robots on the stage. You'll see all this stuff, virtual goggles. It was really an eye-opening event in San Jose. And then we're talking about predictive analytics and cybersecurity is shutting stadiums down. That's topics continuing to permeate. And then CRE Tech 4.0, right? At this point, we got 2,200 companies, 3,000 today. And we have approximately 1.5 billion in new fresh capital will be at this event looking for startup opportunities. One of our speakers will tell you about the fund they just announced yesterday, adding another $100 million to the mix, okay? The money is continuing to flow into our industry. 2016, smart campuses, leasing starting to get condensed, automated. Blockchain, still not here yet, but more and more people are talking about it. Cybersecurity, got predictive analytics. We're still trying to figure out the data. And then, like I said, 2,200 companies. Today, the number's 3,000. All right. Deep learning, AI, what's that going to mean to our industry? Smart business process automation, robotic process automation. You're going to see people, you're going to see demos, and IoT is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We got some big companies here today that are not just talking about IoT, but what does IoT mean for buildings? It's getting very real. 2017, last year, San Diego, we introduced the LED screens. We want to keep on front of this stuff. You'll never, very rarely will you see projectors at our conference anymore. We're going to walls. You should all be going to walls, all your lobbies, all your shared common space. Again, all the crazy Silicon Valley technology making, very high energy conference last year. But you look at their faces. I looked at all these pictures. It's getting serious. The hype, the high five, the we can get rich in 12 months. No, this time people are saying the technology's here, we got the tools, but let's get serious. Let's look at the business objectives, the business drivers. And they take, just like I assume you were going to all do in the next couple of days, we're taking notes and we're going to go back to our offices and we're going to get some things done. So that leaves us to today, and everybody says, what are you thinking, for the next 3 to 5 years? And I'm not going to prognosticate too much, but a couple themes come to my mind. A lot of money coming into the industry, has been for about 8 years. What does that look like? How do we reconcile 25 to 50 and 100 to 200? That's a cultural, that's a human thing. That's not a technology thing. That's an organizational issue. That's a human issue. It's fast. I can't keep up. Everybody I talk to can't keep up. So that's why this collaboration and sharing is going to be so critical. Other things I've got my radar on are education, math and science continues. If we don't have enough kids coming out of school with good math skills to go to the universities, you're not going to have people to hire to make your technology work or to run our buildings. So that's a big issue. And I would say that the next 3 years are going to be critical, that you share, you collaborate, you communicate with each other, because this is not a journey you want to do alone. There's a lot of potholes and there's a lot of risk. And one bad decision can put you in a place you don't want to be. So that's it. That's 20 years. I'm sure I went over a little bit. Sherry didn't throw anything at me, so I think I'm close. But again, a very sincere thank you for giving us the opportunity to curate this conversation for 20 years. We're excited about this event. Sold out exhibit floor, record attendance, in modern times. You're all bringing more people, teams, and we're looking forward to getting down to business. And we got a great general session. And I just want to say again, thank you for the 20 years and being part of the journey. Thank you.
Remember CBRE Group, which now trades under CBRE, a much more straightforward symbol than its old one? CBRE is the world's largest purveyor of commercial real estate services. They help real estate investors by giving them outsourced leasing, sales, appraisals, development, and property management services, along with a lot of helpful technology. Now, after rallying nearly 40% last year, this stock has put on another 8.4% for 2018. Plus, roughly 2 weeks ago, CBRE reported a darn good quarter, giving us a bountiful top and bottom line beat, 20% earnings growth, even as the first quarter tends to be the slowest time of the year. And while the stock moved up on the news, it's still down about 3% from its all-time high about a month ago. So could this thing have more upside? Let's check in with Bob Salentic. He's the president and CEO of CBRE Group.
Ladies and gentlemen, now please welcome to the stage President and CEO, CBRE, Bob Salentic.
Good morning and thanks, everyone. It's great to be here. Jim, congratulations to you and Realcomm on your 20th anniversary. That's 20 years of really visionary thinking on behalf of our industry. And there's a result associated with that. As a result, and consistent with the theme of this conference, Realcomm's influence and role as a catalyst in our sector is in fact accelerating. And speaking of the theme of this conference, the age of acceleration around commercial real estate, technology, and innovation, I've been in the business 35 years. I'm guessing there's a lot in the room that haven't been here nearly that long. I can tell you in the 35 years I've been in this industry, the pace of digital innovation, and even more importantly, the pace of adoption has never been close to what it is now. Never been so fast, never been so impactful. We've got a lot more to do, a lot of opportunity out ahead of us, but we shouldn't deny the fact that we've come a long ways and we're in a very different place today than we have been historically, even as recently as 2 or 3 years ago. In my comments today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the evolution of our sector, commercial real estate, and I'm going to give you some background on our company, CBRE, and the digital status of things at CBRE today and how that's evolved over time. I want to create some perspective on what I see as the digital opportunity in commercial real estate. And in my comments, I'll use the terms digital and technology synonymously, really covering the products, services, and business models that are enabled by technology. There's a few things I won't cover, and there's obvious reason for that. I'm not going to talk about the merits of specific technologies or how they work. The reason for that is there's a lot of really good technologists in this room, a lot of really good technologists, a number of them from our company, and I'm not one of them. So I'm going to leave it to your superior insights to deal with those things. Now let's look at the history of our sector. When you go back, not even as far as to when I came into the business in the mid-'80s, and into the 90s, and in a lot of ways even into the 2000s, it was an intensely local business. Commercial real estate was intensely local. It was transactional, very individualistic. And there was one element of our sector that dominated a lot of what was done. Information was opaque. Anybody in this room that's been in the business for a long time knows that. There was no common information for us to operate on in our sector. And as is the case now, commercial real estate was cyclical. And the fact that we had an opaque circumstance around information caused us to make mistakes cycle after cycle and repeat those mistakes. We were an industry with minimal investment in business systems. Most of the businesses were small. And we were an industry with almost no investment in technology, almost no investment in technology. Things have changed a lot. Today, our sector is global. Commercial real estate is global. There's still aspects of it that are very local, but it's global. Much more account-based than it ever was before. We're all doing things for our clients, investors in commercial real estate and occupiers, across lines of business, around the world. Much more account-based, much more collaborative as a result, and also as a result, much more complex than it ever was before. There's some really good news. It's also a lot more transparent than it ever was before. We're all operating with a much more common base of information now. I think the future would suggest that it's even get more common, but it's much more common than it was before. We're still cyclical, but we're not making the same mistakes that we made historically. And I'll give you a piece of really concrete evidence to support that. We're 9 years into an economic expansion, and there's very little overbuilding in any product type in most places around the world. Think back to previous cycles. We'd get 6, 7 years into a cycle. There'd be all kinds of overbuilding and all kinds of problems as a result. We don't have that now. There's been a huge influx of digital talent and investment into our sector, investment in technology, and the usage of technology in our sector has gone up radically. It is indeed a very different business today. And commercial real estate is an attractive sector to operate in, partly because of the technology profile we have today, but there's other things going on. Occupiers of commercial real estate, a big customer for all of us, are asking us to do more and more things for them. They're outsourcing more and more services to us. Institutional capital has flowed into commercial real estate in a big way. Institutional investors, another client base for many of us, if not most of us. Since I came into the business, the amount of institutional capital in our sector has increased fivefold, and that's continuing. There's all kinds of consolidation going on in our sector. Companies are consolidating, professionals are consolidating in various ways, sometimes into the same company, sometimes just partnering. Our clients are consolidating the number of service providers they use, as I said, more global, more connected. All of this makes us well-oriented toward being enabled by technology. And some good things are happening as a result. The industry's attracting capital. The industry's attracting a lot of tech talent, as I already said. And our company fits into this whole sector pretty nicely. I think CBRE is, in fact, a good proxy for what's going on in our sector, and I'm going to give you some reasons. First of all, we cover most of the product types offered in commercial real estate. And we work with most of the large clients on both sides, the investor side and the occupier side. We've also had a history in the technology arena, in the digital arena, that I think is not all that unusual. And there's parts of it that, when I look back on it, I wish had been a little different. But the reality was, if you looked at technology in our company 3, 4, 5 years ago, I always have gone around the world a lot and spoken to our people and our clients. The feedback I would get left me a little shell-shocked at times. If you went back 5 years ago and went to any part of the world and talked to our people or talked to our clients, what they would say is, you guys aren't very good at technology. It's not just that you're not good, you're not paying attention, you're not investing, you don't seem to be that focused on it. That was a real problem for us, and we were committed to doing something about it. And we did two big things about 3 years ago, or we made two big decisions. Some of the things we did followed. Two big decisions. Number one, we decided that we were going to have very, very strong digital leadership in our company, as strong as the leadership in any other part of our company. Number two, we decided that technology was going to be embedded in our company. It wasn't going to sit alongside and try to do things for us that we weren't equipped to do. It was going to be embedded in our company. And since that time, we've rapidly evolved. Most important thing we did, probably, was to bring in a new leader, a new global leader for our digital and technology offering, Chandra Dandapani. She's here, and she spoke yesterday. Chandra built a new team for us, okay? And she had the ability to do that. She came from the financial services industry. She had worked for a company that was particularly well known for its technology offering, and she was a superstar in that company. So she knew where to go for talent, and she knew how to attract talent. She and her team have built technology roadmaps for every line of business in our company, and we are following those technology roadmaps extremely closely. Chandra and her team have a seat at the table in CBRE, consistent with the desire to bring in a talent that was as good as the best talent we had anywhere in the business. She has a seat at the table. She reports to me directly, and every 90 days she shows up and presents to our board of directors, talks about the investments we're making, the opportunities we have, talks about the challenges we have and the things we need to change in this company, and every bit of it is met with real receptivity. So today we have a philosophy about technology at CBRE. Number one, it has to be embedded in the business. I already commented on that, but there's two other big elements to our philosophy. It has to impact the outcomes we deliver to our clients. We want to invest in technology that impacts the outcomes we deliver to our clients, and it has to be commercial. We believe if the technology we invest in, if our digital strategy is not commercial, it won't be sustainable. As we've gone down this path, down this digital and technology path, we've had some benefits that we really didn't expect to see, some big benefits. Number one, like many companies in our sector, we were challenged and have been challenged in terms of diversity. We're not adequately diverse, particularly here in the United States. Well, with the technology team we've built and the professionals that team has helped us attract, we become more diverse, meaningfully more diverse. Another thing that's happened, and I think the people in this room will be able to relate to this, we weren't going to build a great technology team if we weren't socially responsible. I think everybody knows that young technology professionals want to go places that are socially responsible. We've meaningfully escalated our social responsibility profile in response to the technology talent we brought in, and this is a really good thing. We are a much more appealing company today to young professionals than we've ever been before. And how do we use technology today? There's a lot of things we're using it for, but the cornerstone of it is we have roughly 35 technology tools, a suite of tools that we use across our business. We track those tools closely, the usage of those tools, the impact those tools have on our clients, and that last piece is hard, to really get to the bottom of the impact the tools have on the clients. I meet with Chandra every month, and we review the usage, and the usage is going up across the board. Let me give you some examples of the types of things we have. We have an online listing platform in our capital markets business that we use extensively. We have 3D space visualization and space planning that we got when we acquired the company Florida. And by the way, we got some spectacular talent with that company. We do a lot of building management, and we support that management of buildings with the Internet of Things, facilities management, and property management. We have an energy management platform, a technology-enabled energy management platform that we got through an acquisition. We do all kinds of location analytics today. On the office building side, we built a platform, and on the retail side, we acquired a company, Form Analytics, that gives us that capability. One of the really big changes we made, and Jim alluded to it earlier, about 4 to 5 years ago, we started changing the way we use our own space. Our own offices today are paperless and wireless. They're activity-based, and they are loaded with wellness functionality. Every bit of that enabled by technology. And again, this is another one of the things that's changed our profile as a company. It's changed how attractive we are to young professionals and technology and digitally oriented professionals. It's been a big deal for us. I want to give you an example of how we use technology in just one of our lines of business. And as I go through this, I'm not going to list all the places in this line of business we use it. But as I go through this, I'd ask you to think about this. We say this is an industry that really hasn't adopted technology and doesn't use technology. Okay? I'm going to walk through a line of business that's been out there forever and think about what I'm about to say. It's what we used to call tenant rep. Today we call it Occupier Advisory and Transaction Services. That's a long name, but when I walk through this, the name will make sense to you. Let's start with the team we use to work with clients in this area. The teams used to be small, 1 or 2 or 3 people, and they were traditional real estate professionals, really smart, really creative, really hardworking, really cared about their clients, really devoid of any ability as it relates to technical capability, technology capability. Today, the teams that we put in front of our Occupier Advisory Transaction Services clients are embedded with technologists and traditional professionals. We use predictive analytics to identify and evaluate location alternatives. We use data visualization to hone in on specific properties. We use 3D virtual reality to explore building stacking and test fits, test plans for the clients. When we get into lease negotiations, we have all kinds of data capability and analytical tools that we use today that we didn't even think about just a few years ago. Then you get into the building design and the building construction and the occupancy of the building. And there's an abundant number of places where technology is used. You almost can't count them. So the teams that attack this line of business, the processes we use, the tools we use, are barely recognizable today relative to where they were just a few years ago. So we really can't say that this is a business that hasn't been impacted digitally. And really importantly, and importantly for our company, it is dramatically impacting the outcomes we deliver to our clients. The timing we're able to deliver to our clients, and you know clients, occupiers of space, sometimes they want to get in quickly. The efficiency of the space they occupy after we put them in there, radically improved. Their experience, if there's anything going on that we have to agree on, there's all kinds of things about experience that are being impacted digitally today. And we're able to impact their occupancy economically in a big way. I could paint a similar picture for the rest of our lines of business, or at least a somewhat similar picture for most of our lines of business. Now, there's a few areas that digital is really evolving rapidly within CBRE, really getting a lot of attention and really getting a lot of focus because of our unique profile. And while I think we're common to a lot of other companies in the room, there are some unique elements. We manage space today, office space, with between 8 and 9 million people in it. Between 8 and 9 million people in it. As a result, we have a huge amount of interface with office occupiers. And because of that interface and because of what we know those clients want through that interface and because of what our technology team can do today, we're really engrossed in working on experience solutions for those clients. Secondly, client outcomes. It's the cornerstone of our strategy, absolutely underpins everything we do. We brought on a team led by a data scientist and a number of data engineers, and we are working really hard to use data to not just understand whether clients are happy or not, but whether we're actually delivering the outcomes that they were looking for. Sometimes a client can be happy and not quite get the outcome we want. We're trying to use data to figure that out. In aggregate, we manage about 5 billion square feet of space around the world, right? So that means we're buying huge amounts of product of all types. And for years, we've wanted to find a way to use technology to get not just better, but dramatically better at procuring various things for that space, for the users of that space and the clients in that space. We are investing heavily today in data-driven procurement systems, and that's something you're going to hear a lot about from us over the next year, along with these other two areas. Expect to hear more. As a result of all this, technology and digital capability feel a lot different today in CBRE than it felt 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when I was doing those tours around the world and kind of getting pelted by our people and our clients. It all used to be really hard for us. But today, buying technology, buying hardware, and especially buying software has become much more easy for us because our people are more used to it, because we have talent that can get it done. We're in a position today where we can buy technology companies, and we do a good amount of that, and I listed some of them for you, and we can integrate those companies smoothly into our business. We have 80 agile software development teams around the world, in all parts of the world, and that number is growing rapidly. And because we have those teams, we're able to buy software and modify and customize it for our use in a dramatically better fashion than we could just a couple years ago. We're also able to develop customized software to use on behalf of our clients. We couldn't do that, and we can do that easily now. Another thing that's become much more easy for us, and many of you in the room work with us, working with third-party providers of technology. We've figured out how to do that. And by the way, I think that's common among the people in this room. So let's go from our company to commercial real estate in general. And I think the rest of the industry kind of looks like we do, right? Technology today is embedded and mature in a good number of areas in our business. In fact, in some places, it's almost ubiquitous. It's out there, and we've forgotten it's out there and don't take credit for that. But there's much about technology in our sector that's new and experimental. And there really aren't a lot of industry standard technologies. But the focus on technology, the investment in technology, the talent, the technology talent in our sector is growing rapidly, and that puts us in a really good place. There's a couple areas where I think there's going to be a huge amount of activity. There's a lot of areas where we're going to see a lot, but there's two areas in particular where I think there's going to be a step change around technology in the very near future. Number one, complex transactions. We're still an industry where complex transactions rely awful heavily on the creativity and strategic thinking of our experienced professionals. And that's a really good thing. It's a good thing for our clients, and it's a good thing for our people. But with the rate of forward advancement of artificial intelligence, I think we're going to see more and more input from artificial intelligence into those transactions. I'll bet anything that's something we see. Secondly, this whole arena of turning space into a service. Whole arena is going to advance rapidly. The physical layout of the space, the technology that supports the use of the space, the way companies work together to serve the occupants in the space, there's been a huge amount of change in that area. It's very, very real. Flexible space, co-working, all of that is extremely real. We believe a significant portion of the base of office space out there will move in that direction. But here's what I think about where we are. I think as it relates to space use experience, we're kind of at the BlackBerry stage. I think we're kind of at the BlackBerry stage. Remember the CrackBerry stage? I think we're at the BlackBerry stage, and I think there's an iPhone somewhere out there around the corner, or multiple iPhones, and it won't be too long before we start seeing some of that. So what does this all mean for us? For all of us individually, for our clients, for the companies we're part of. Let's go back to the comments I made at the outset about the size of our industry and the positive trends in our industry. For sure, we've laid a good digital foundation. We're not where we're going to be, and we're not where we want to be, but we've laid a good digital foundation. And by definition, once you lay a foundation, you can efficiently build, right? I think historically we had no foundation. We were just kind of floundering. We had nothing to build on. But we've got a good foundation today. And I think that's a great place to be for all of us, right? It's an exciting place. It's an early place. It's real. We got somewhere to go from here, and the odds of going are good. But an awful lot of it is left to be done. And I want to give you an analogy that I think really brings this into focus. This is something I can remember, and a lot of you in the room probably can't because you're a lot younger. But if you go back 40 years and look at manufacturing in the US and around the world, look at manufacturing in the 80s in the US and around the world. Quality was a buzzword in US manufacturing, and quality was a buzzword in manufacturing in most places around the world. But there was a couple places it wasn't a buzzword. Japan and Germany, right? In Japan and Germany, quality was embedded, and it was foundational. And as a result of that, for about 20 years, Japan and Germany steamrolled the rest of the world as it relates to manufacturing. And they put a lot of hurt on us here in the US. And I think those of you who've been around know that. Tech is no longer a buzzword in commercial real estate. It's becoming a staple. It's becoming foundational. It's becoming embedded. And I think that gives us a chance to do what Germany and Japan did with manufacturing. Traditional professionals are being comfortable with the use of technology. Our industry is attracting real technologists and huge amounts of capital. Hardware, software, data, and people are becoming comfortably integrated. And that's the opportunity I see for all of us. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, joining Bob on stage, please welcome back Jim Young.
Well, I can't tell you how pleased I am to be sitting next to Bob. From the very beginning, and you saw the 1999, I was more businessman and a hobbyist technologist, but I knew just enough. But from the day one of this conference, it was about business. Yeah, we had to get the mail servers working, and yeah, we had to keep the technology, but you get that stuff taken care of, and then you get to work and try to impact the business. So to have you know, the CEO running an 80,000 person global organization, the big ship, saying a few of the things I heard you say about data scientists, and it's not a buzzword, and it's foundational. We've been waiting to hear those words from you for a long time, so thank you for that. You know? And I think there's a few people in the audience who would appreciate that. So I was sitting back there listening, and we've talked a lot in the last couple of weeks to try to say, you know, what can we say in 20 minutes or so? You know, what kind of conversation we could have. So we wrote down some questions, and based upon what you said, let's talk about that foundational versus hype thing, right? So we've .com, we obviously saw a big hype phase. We went very high, it dropped, but some good companies came out of that, but a lot of them did not. Are we in a hype phase right now? I mean, with all the capital coming in and all, 3,000 companies, what do you think, where are we in that tech cycle, if you will?
Well, for sure there's hype around some things, right? And I can tell you we've invested in some things that turned out to be hype. That's why the commitment to being commercial is so important. Things that are hype aren't sustainable. But there's an awful lot that isn't hype. And you take that example I gave about the traditional tenant rep business that we now call advisory and transaction services. We can't do the things we're doing today for clients without the digital capability we have, without the data capability we have. That's not hype. When you're changing outcomes for clients, that's not hype. And there's a lot going on that's changing outcomes for clients.
Well, if you think about it, from a tech standpoint, mainframe computers, a lot of computing power, few people. More people, mini computers. Distributed PCs, everybody should have a PC. Now we carry them in our pockets, right? So now the foundation's set. We're all connected via the internet or telecommunications. The data's starting to flow. The data's getting thrown into these big repositories, hence your data scientists, right? I mean, what are we going to do with all this data? What are we going to just gather data, or are we going to get insight?
Yeah. Well, the goal is to get insight, right? And so we've started in a couple places in that regard. Number one, I mentioned earlier, we're really, really obsessed over this notion of understanding client outcomes. Again, I think we got to differentiate between client service. All of us have been around the notion of great client service, great communications, being professional. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actually knowing how we impact the outcome we delivered impacted the client. You can do that with surveys and so forth, but sometimes the surveys don't give you the insight you need. So we're trying to work with our data team to actually collect the kind of data we need to truly understand the outcomes we delivered. And as we say, then use that information to better serve the clients going forward, provide better outcomes. We have a big outsourcing business where we essentially take over the real estate functions, strategy, property management, or facilities management, project management for occupiers. All kinds of opportunity on the usage of space, the availability of space in the marketplace, cost around the occupancy of space. Huge opportunity to serve those clients with data, and we're really focused on that.
And as it does get smaller and smarter, more compressed, you need to substantiate your theories, right?
Absolutely.
So if you were Jamie Dimon in the financial services industry, we could have been having this conversation probably 10 years ago, maybe even 15. I think financial services realized that data, good information, you talked about this next generation of transaction. I mean, you go onto an E-Trade account or a Schwab account, when you're looking at that screen, you've got 30, 40 systems of data that's coming from all over different places, but it's come together, right? So the financial services had good relationships with their IT teams for a long time. You mentioned something about Chandra, that she has a seat at the table. For a long time, many of the folks in this industry, they don't, right? They get handed a list after the strategy meeting. What do you say to your fellow CEOs?
Well,
as far as the relationship between you and tech?
Well, our technology team is embedded. As I said, there's some key underpinnings of what we do in technology. It has to be embedded, it has to be commercial, and it has to impact client outcomes. When you embed it, that means it's part of the team, right? We view our technology professionals today, our digital professionals today, the same as our traditional market-facing professionals. They are part of the team that goes out there to serve the clients in every way. And you know what? That's changed the way our traditional people feel about things. Our traditional people have a little more hop in their step today because they know that they can show up as part of a team that can do things that we couldn't do before. There was a little lack of self-assuredness developing over the last few years about this hole that we had in our game.
Mm-hmm. I
I think we filled that hole, but you can only fill that hole if you make those people as prominent as the traditional people.
Right. So to the executive leadership of the hundreds of millions or thousands of companies in our industry, message is tech just has to be embedded in your executive leadership thinking.
Has to be embedded, and it has to be a group of people that's on the same status as the rest of your professionals. It's part of your product. It's not something that sits behind your product and support it. It's part of your product. By the way, one of the things that's happening is that we're seeing in some areas where things are flipping a little. And look at this Floored capability we got when we acquired that business, where in fact the traditional people may be backing up a little bit, and the technology people, the digital people, are a little more out in front, and that's fine too.
Right. And so it's one thing to change a small organization, and I honestly believe that we're going to have lots of technology. We got a sold out exhibit floor. We got all sorts of new companies. We're going to have people sitting in panels and talking about this for the next 2 days. We have technology. But I actually think it's more about the human side and the organizational side. So, you're the leader of a company, and you've got to look in the mirror every morning and you got to say, am I capable of change? Especially at the rate that this is happening. Because as a leader, you go into the company, you influence your department, and you're steering an 80,000 person ship, right? So, and you're doing it. It sounds like, you're moving that ship pretty aggressively, right? What's the message to smaller companies where executive leadership may be a little hesitant?
Well, I started saying this to our leadership team, and if you talk to them, they'd tell you this a few years ago. I think our need to move forward in the digital arena was as much about human behavior, organizational behavior, as it was about technology. You had to have people that were capable of doing it and people that wanted to do it. Now, we're in a company that, and by the way, we're in an industry, not just a company, we're in an industry that has always been super entrepreneurial, right? What do entrepreneurs want to do? They want to find new ways to do things they couldn't do before. So there's a mindset among a lot of the people out there that's very supportive of the notion of getting to the next place, digitally speaking, technology speaking, right? And so I would say if you did a scattergram of all our people in our company, of course, where the company sits was kind of the weighted average positioning of our people. But a lot of people whose position was ahead of the kind of weighted average position of the whole company are the people that have sustained and become more prominent in the business, and they're dragging us along, and it's a cultural thing, and that side of it has been easier than I thought it was going to be.
Wow,
what is hard with 80,000 people, I commented on those 35 applications that we track and invest in and use. It's not easy to get everybody to understand what you have, right?
Well, a perfect example, though, is when Lou came to you, with the idea for LA. Get rid of the cubes. Nobody's got offices. That was a bold move, right? And so I'm sure you were involved in the conversations. He said, okay, well, let's try this. But what I see from it is he had full executive support.
Mm-hmm.
He was allowed to fail, or maybe not totally fail, but it wasn't going to be perfect the first time. But now that's been adopted through the whole company. Tell us a little bit about that particular decision to let him take that kind of risk.
Well, first of all, Lou Horn changed CBRE. He fundamentally changed CBRE, and I want to give you an anecdote to support that. If you went back not very long ago and watched companies like ourselves or our competitors or people that were in relatively similar parts of the business show up on campus at colleges, we'd get some attention, maybe a little bit lukewarm, but we'd get some attention. Last year in Dallas, Los Angeles, and New York, we ran summer intern programs. And in each market we were looking, and these were generally for students between their junior and senior year in college. In each market we were looking for between 10 and 15 interns. And in all three markets we had over 500 applications. And our HR people that were running these programs looked into what's going on here. This free addressing, what we call CBRE 360 approach to officing, has had a huge impact on our reputation. So that's kind of the external view and the impact it's had. Internally, it's done a couple things. First of all, there are a lot of long-standing professionals in our sector that thought they had to have private offices with leather couches, and Lou had to get them over that. But there was a bigger thing than that. The bigger thing was all of us, Lou and me and everybody else, had to be paperless to do that. You can't do that without being paperless. And that was a huge transition. Now, I tell you, I travel all over the world, and it's been a wonderful thing for me. It's a much lighter ride when I do it.
Takes a little while to get used to it, but once you do, it's like, wow. That's
wonderful thing. And almost everybody that's gotten over that hump has liked it.
When you were at that point of making the decision to do it, though, were there a couple of senior level execs that say, what are we doing here? I mean, did you have to get in there and block for Lou?
Well, Lou did it, and I'll tell you, LA wasn't the first place we did it. The very first place we did it, and it wouldn't surprise people that know what goes on around the world, was in Amsterdam.
Right.
They're kind of out in front of this kind of stuff. And so what Lou did was, yes, there were a small handful of very influential, very productive, very senior objectors, and he took a group of them over to Amsterdam. And that was kind of the final thing that got us over the hump. And now you make accommodations, right? And it is a reality. One of the things that's happened as we've gone to this free addressing approach to utilization of space is that you realize people do need to be in private rooms sometimes, right? If I'm discussing a compensation of individuals with our global head of human resources, I'm probably not going to be one sitting in Starbucks.
Or
right?
have an Alexa.
Yeah. But so they're and so we've accommodated that. But what you do is you take the private offices, you put them in the center, and you make them all glass so that light shines through and so forth. And those senior people that we needed to accommodate, needed to educate, we've largely gotten them over the hump, and they've become champions for this approach.
That usually is what happens. Your biggest objectors become your biggest supporters. But for a large organization to make such a, I mean, you are people who are saying lease more space. That's in your DNA, right? And now you're saying less space. That not was it just big and bold, but it was culturally, a big adjustment. And then all of a sudden, you're out there telling your clients, well, maybe you don't need that much space. Maybe we should make it smaller and smarter. And I think that, in some respects, can put you ahead of that curve. Yeah.
Well, we did tell our clients that, and we told a lot of our clients. One of the things that I failed to mention that got a lot of these senior professionals over the hump is that our clients became fascinated by what we were doing. Lou has the numbers. I can't give them off the top of my head, but we've literally had tens of thousands of clients through that space. Well, what do? They come through that space and they say, well, we need this. Can you help us do this? And our senior professionals have gotten a lot of business out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, because you show. You just don't talk about something. You're living it, and that carries a lot of weight. All right, stay on the same theme, but going back out to the industry, not necessarily just CB. Age of acceleration. Last year's general session, we said, commercial real estate or corporate real estate, 25 miles an hour. Commercial, I think, is a little faster, 50 miles an hour. Tech today, 100 miles an hour. Tech tomorrow, AI, blockchain, autonomous, 200 miles an hour. And there's a little device sitting right there, and we're going to see in a couple minutes some really cool stuff. But it's fundamental change. I mean, does the day ever come where Alexa answers your phones and is your receptionist? And I mean, and the second part of that question is, that's a paradigm shift of agrarian age proportion, right? I mean, all of a sudden, we now have very smart, technology that can displace humans. That's 300 miles an hour. Are you thinking that far down the road?
Well, we're trying to, right? And the reality of it is, I said at the outset, I'm not a technologist, right? But I've made darn sure we have a bunch of them in our company in very prominent roles, and we try to get their best thinking. That's another thing I believe in so much, is that the best thinking comes from groups, not solitary individuals. And so when we work on strategy, what we say, we try to coax the best strategy out of our people as a group and whatever outside help we get. Well, we try to coax the best thinking about technology out of our technology people and all of our people that are embedded with our clients, in our clients' offices. And so, yeah, we know a lot of that stuff's coming. But here's the thing, Jim, that makes me not that worried about it. Of course, I'm worried about it like everybody is. But what makes me not that worried about it? We've got a lot of super talented people in the business now that are fully capable of dealing with it and leading it and driving it. Our general population, because of things like our 360 office approach, is much more able than they used to be. We interface with our clients pretty comfortably with the use of technology, and we serve them with the use of technology today. So, again, this foundation that we've built puts us in a place that we don't all need to seem so fragile and vulnerable about it. We need to feel like we can embrace it and use it and drive the business forward.
I mean, and if you look at history, even going back, agrarian, industrial, pre-information, and today, we adjust, right? But when a little hesitancy when I hear people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates saying, we got to keep an eye on this AI thing, right? Because it's very powerful. And what we're just seeing and hearing today is just the beginning, right? So, I mean, there's the iPad from yesterday. Here's the iPad of today. That's 20 years between that and this. And then by today's time frames, probably would only take 3. AI is going to be on the scene pretty quick.
Yeah. It's going to be on the scene quick, and it's going to be a revolution, not an evolution when it happens. But human beings are made to deal with change, right? I'll give you an analogy that I think demonstrates that, and it's in our very own sector, right? It's the retail business, and today we're going through radical changes to retailing, omnichannel, et cetera, all driven by e-commerce, and e-commerce is being driven by technology. And there's a lot of chatter that almost would make you feel, if you listen to it, like, oh my gosh, retail's changing radically today. This has never happened before. Well, I grew up in the 60s and 70s in a town called Council Bluffs, Iowa, right across the river from a bigger town, Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska had about 500,000 people when I was growing up. Omaha, Nebraska had a beautiful downtown. It had shops, restaurants, theaters. It had everything, and you could walk it. And a lot of what we want today with retail, right? Well, what happened? The suburban malls came and completely crushed downtowns. And that was just Omaha, right? What about the bigger cities, right? And so the malls completely crushed downtown retail all over the country. That ran for a few years. And then what happened? Big box retail came along and crushed a lot of the malls, right? Then what happened? E-commerce came along. Well, there's always been a lot of change. When you're in the middle of it, you think it's the first, but it's not. Human beings are built to deal with change, and the way you deal with change is you start to build a foundation that allows you to do it, and you go from there.
Our theme for 20 years is lean in. Lean in. I mean, because we do change. We actually change pretty well. And if you do lean in and you're not fearful of it, but you embrace it, then you're moving much faster and you're more competitive, and eventually your competitors see it and they're forced to change, and we move on. Going back to some of the emerging technologies, AI, the other one is picking us, we're seeing a lot of attention paid to is autonomous, right? Autonomous vehicles, and everybody thinks, it's here tomorrow. It's not here tomorrow, I don't think. It's gonna evolve over the next 3 to 5 years. But I am hearing people in LA saying, you know what, we should build our parking garages different, and be ready, just in case it happens faster. Do you think that's wise to think about 3 to 5 years out and have some plan Bs in place?
Oh, well, I don't think there's any doubt, and it's happening today. We had Andy Cohen, a lot of you probably know Andy. He's the CEO of Gensler. He spoke at our senior top producer event on this very subject a year and a half ago. And he talked about a lot of the things that are happening in the design arena. One very simple thing is a lot of their clients are asking them to not build these slope parking decks anymore. Why? Very simple. I don't think you want to go in a restaurant when it becomes a restaurant 10 years. Right.
Yeah,
so that's happening. One of the unfortunate realities about autonomous vehicles, which I do believe are coming, is that if you could fast forward 100 years and get beyond the built environment we have today, you'd get to a pretty good place. You'd get to the kind of place we want, more condensed CBDs that are walkable and pedestrian friendly. You don't have cars. The fact of the matter is, the first thing that's going to happen is the cars are going to come off the streets and they're going to park around the periphery. But you're still going to have the wide streets and you're still going to have the garages. And so it's going to be a longer period of time that we come to grips with the changes we need to make to the built environment to most effectively.
I think the real message is sit in a room with those smart people and throw this stuff on the wall, right? And to me, I think the biggest issue is not, is it going to change, is the timing, right? And if you're helping clients strategize, is this a 3-year issue, a 5-year issue, a 7-year issue? And none of us have crystal balls, but I think that conversation is helpful. So I've got one final question for you. To those people who are sitting in the audience, who are the technology people, whether they're property managers, facility managers, IT professionals, and they've got vision, they got passion, and they got some ideas. But when they knock on that door, nobody opens it, right? Their executive leadership is not as responsive as you are. What's the advice you give to them to get their executive leaderships to maybe think about technology a little more strategically?
Well, and I'm being a little redundant here, Jim, but I want to go back to what it took for us to do it, right? you know, to get things done, you got to have something to aim at, right? If you don't have a target, it's hard. Where am I going here, right? And so we did two things, or we focused on two things that made it a lot easier for us to move downstream with technology. One thing we said is we're going to do stuff that changes outcomes for our clients, right? So if I come to you with an idea and you got clients and I'm going to change the outcomes for the clients, you're going to be more receptive. The other thing we said is it's got to be commercial. Things that aren't commercial generally aren't sustainable. Once we got our head wrapped around those things, it made it a lot easier for us to come to grips with what we needed to do. By the way, it made it hugely easier for us to recruit technology people because they believed they were going to come into our company and succeed.
Well, and what I just got out of that was also the message to the technical community is you got to get out of the office and you got to go talk to clients.
It's true of all of us.
All of us. Yeah, I mean, you can't sit there with your ideas. You got to go out and you got to throw them out there. You got to get them tested. You got to get them knocked down, and you got to feel their pain and feel their issues. And the only way you do that is getting out into the streets.
In the end, it's all about the clients.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, this has been a long journey for us, 20 years, and I don't think we could have landed at a better place here. We know we've been trying to get you for a couple of years, and everything worked out. I will tell you, this man altered his travel plans for us today. He was committed to being here. We had lunch last week, a couple weeks ago, just kind of get to know each other. Really, really excited to see that ship that will force us all to move. You know, that it's got somebody at the helm like you with some vision and the capacity to take some risks. So thank you very, very much.
Thrilled to be part of it, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. Take this opportunity to introduce Anant before he comes onto the stage. Given it's our 20th, you just heard a great conversation with a leader. Not only is Anant Yardi a visionary with tenacity and persistence, I don't want to tell the story wrong, but I think it started in a garage with a DOS computer 30 plus years ago. And this man is consistently over a 30-year period had a vision, tenacious, consistent, persistent, built an incredible organization, global organization, and really has been a major influence in this industry and a great supporter of ours for 20 years, probably since the very beginning. So I just want to bring Anant to the stage and say thank you, and I know you're in for a great, great presentation. Anant?
First, let me start by saying it's a privilege to be here. And 20 years have gone by quickly. It just is interesting for me to think about the things that may have occurred in the last 20 years, the steps, the missteps, the corrective action. And it was fascinating for me to listen to Jim speak about 20 years condensed into 15 minutes. I'm going to speak about 20 years, and I'm going to condense them into one slide, which seems a little awkward. But nevertheless, as I look back at the 20-year period, there are 3 stages that we have gone through. And listening to Jim, and this will be an issue for many of you, you would see all of the different technologies that have surfaced. And your job, and our job to some extent, is to figure out which technologies will be impactful, which technologies will be successful, and place your bets on those right technologies. When I think about the 20-year period, the starting point for me is the dot-com bubble. And the one prevailing technology that has really affected all of us is the internet. In 1998, there were lots of companies, and they didn't quite survive. And this is something else that I think we have to come to grips with. The right choice in terms of technology and the right partner. 20 years ago, our focus was ERP. How do we make available, and how would you get access to real-time data that's precise, that's accurate, and that gives you transparency into your organization? Advancing another 7 or 8 years, the next major trend was cloud computing, mobility, and social media. And if in the first phase, our focus was collect the data, make it available, create a transparent system that you can depend on. In the second phase, the focus was how do we capture transactions at their source? And that's when mobile apps, portals became popular. And by and large today, I would say it's all in place. The question then is, what about the future? And where might this be headed? And the three technologies that stand out for us are big data, artificial intelligence, and Internet of Things. And we've heard these terms for quite some time, and you might say, how does this apply in my organization? What does it do for me? We can talk about big data, we can talk about data sciences, but eventually, what does all of this mean? And I would suggest to you that the focus needs to be operational efficiency and operational performance. In terms of phase 1, phase 2, I spoke about the fact that our goal was to capture, and when I say our goal, I'm representing the technology platform, and unlike the past 2 conversations, I'm going to drag you into some level of detail, so you'll have to bear with that. So in terms of transactions, what are these transactions that we are looking to capture? Rent payment, invoice processing, procure to pay, leasing, maintenance, and acquisition and dispositions. And that's a phase that we are transitioning into, and to some extent, things are available. Technology drivers that are available today are cloud, mobile platforms, social media, e-commerce. Technology drivers for the future would be big data, AI, Internet of Things, virtual reality, augmented reality. There's one item that's missing that many of you have heard about, and it's blockchains. So I'm going to offer a contrarian opinion, and sometimes it's always risky to offer a contrarian opinion. To me, blockchains is an amazing technology, but at the end of an 8 to 10 year period, it sure feels like it's a solution that's looking for a problem. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It just means that you have to give it enough time. And timing is a key part of it. Most of these changes take a long time. 20 years is a long time to get to where we are today. And you might ask, in 10 years, where might we be? The focus for any technology, I think, eventually has to reduce to 5 things. And this applies to any business. Increase revenue, increase asset value, reduce costs, reduce risk, and improve customer service. There's just nothing new about it, but sometimes as technologists, we sort of forget our fundamentals. And to me, big data, AI, IoT, to the extent that they don't satisfy these 5 goals, I don't think they'll succeed. And I'd like to give you some examples of how this might move forward. Here is a typical financial statement for a 250,000 square foot building. And at $40 per square foot rent, it pulls in 10 million in terms of rental revenue, 1.7 million with respect to recoveries. And our total expenses amount to, in this example, about 6 million. A third of that would be utilities and MRO. Our goal as technologists would be to show you how we can improve your revenue structure, improve your occupancy, reduce your costs for MRO, and reduce your costs for utilities. And to the extent that we succeed, these technology platforms will be adopted. To the extent that we don't succeed, you're not going to accept them. Let me give you some examples of products and as they relate to the ERP platform. And these are just examples. And the examples would be, how do you keep track of all of your deals? How do you keep track of your jobs that are being under construction? Forecasting. How do you list your available space? How do you benchmark? What about procure to pay? Co-working, to the extent that you're implementing co-working and shared space solutions. The purpose of this slide is to say, if ERP and e-commerce transactions feeding into ERP was our primary goal, now we anticipate that there'll be a number of things surrounding it, which in fact will bring to fruition these three concepts. An example of a screenshot. Eventually, we can be talking about high-level concepts and strategies in terms of bringing big data and AI and IoT to the market. But as operators, you are asking the question, how does it help me? And visuals give us a great deal of insight into how things might help you. This would be an example of a property dashboard. And it may be too faint for you to see what's going on, but in fact, it's providing a high-level view. It's a visualization tool, and you can drill down. In this example, if we drill down, the next thing that might show up is all of the leases, and you can drill down into a lease and get the details. You might say, well, this is all standard. Where does AI fit into this? And the answer would be a way of categorizing your revenue sources so you understand the risk matrix. And the nature of AI is such that if you provide features, attributes about anything that you want to highlight or predict and train the AI system, you will be able to create a forecasting engine that will allow you to forecast risk. Let me go to another example, deal insights. If there are multiple proposals, how do you keep track of the likelihood of these proposals succeeding? AI will allow you to predict the likelihood that something will close. How might you do that? It would be based on the time sequence. It might be based upon the distance between your offer and counter offers, and all of this will have to be trained. Deals, in turn, result in tenant improvements. How do you determine the risk associated with these tenant improvements? You might monitor the timelines. You might look at your accounting data and figure out the budget information and forecast. Another example would be forecasting, and I'm going to rush through this because I see the clock ticking over here, and I don't want to have to deal with Sherry, who keeps us on time. Let me go to utilities. If maintenance and repairs would be one area, utilities, just the capacity to get some insight into your demand and consumption in buildings. And most systems will allow you to to reduce your consumption by 10, 15, 20%. In this example, you might see a peak and a spike. And the question might be, how did that occur? And for that, there are fault detection systems where you can correlate a spike with a fault detection. And if you train your AI engine, you would be able to predict, get some sense of, is it time to replace an appliance? All of this data to be accumulated on a per minute, 15-minute basis requires big data. To be able to capture this kind of information also requires big data, but Internet of Things. And it's from a technology perspective, it's interesting to me that the systems that are used and the software that seems to have become popular in Internet of Things is something called Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the name of a Unix platform. Ubuntu is a word that means fellowship. It's an African word. In terms of big data, the three platforms that people seem to use are Lucene, Hadoop, and Cassandra. We have selected Cassandra, and in terms of AI, the solution that seems to be commonplace is something called TensorFlow, and just names that you might make a note of and keep an eye on. Cassandra is the mythological story about Cassandra is that Cassandra was a Troy princess who could foretell the future. And there's something intriguing about Ubuntu in buildings through the IoT platform, Fellowship in Buildings. Cassandra who can tell the future, but Cassandra is also a cluster of stars. And the thing that I just made my day was this notion of Ubuntu in your buildings, which would be fellowship, Cassandra in the sky telling us about the future. All of this will point to sustainability on Earth, and it's going to save you a whole bunch of money in the bank. So think about that, and I'll get to it in just a moment. Market research would be an interesting area. I need to rush through this. Co-working, you all know about. There seems to be an inverse correlation. That is, places, markets where you have more co-working locations have a lower vacancy. Will this industry continue to grow? The forecast is that the number of locations will double. What kind of systems might you need to be able to cater to this industry? A few visuals in terms of online booking, reservations, finding the space, and then making the booking. And will this be a new asset class? That's a question that's being asked. You can see all of the different asset classes for REITs. And we think co-working may in fact be a new asset class. And to wrap up, I would say to you that there are just so many areas and so many things going on in CRE tech. And there are so many companies, and I've attempted to categorize companies in a handful of areas. But it is just an amazing time. It's a fascinating period. And I don't think there's something magical that's going to happen overnight. But given everything that's going on, it's a great time to be in this marketplace. And I would say to you, I feel just completely energized and looking to the future. And for each one of you, I would say good luck as you navigate this maze of change. Thank you.
So in keeping with tradition, we're going to take some risks. How many, show of hands, were at our general session when the drone crashed? Anybody remember that? Okay, good. Yeah. We want to show the technology, not just talk about it, so we flew a drone out over the stage. We also had a robot on a stage, found out after the fact that their frequencies did not like each other, and the drone dropped out. And everybody said, oh, you failed. And I said, no, if we're going to talk about fail fast, we have to be willing to take risks. So I'm very confident about what you're about to see, but nonetheless, if it doesn't work, we don't care. So I'm going to open it with a little video. Google had its conference. We always follow what's going on in Silicon Valley 3 weeks ago. They call it I.O., I believe. And I want you to listen to their CEO, and then I want to watch a little demo that he's going to give.
Let me give you another example. Let's say you want to call a restaurant, but maybe it's a small restaurant which is not easily available to book online. The call actually goes a bit differently than expected. So take a listen.
See, how may I help you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people? When?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Oh, actually, we leave here for like after like 5 people. For 4 people, you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
For when, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday, the 7th.
Oh no, it's not too busy. You can come for 4 people, okay?
Oh, I gotcha. Thanks.
Yep.
So that was not a person. That was a bot, if you will. And if you get a chance, go watch that conference. It's about 2 hours, but there's some real nuggets. Another sequence was your assistant called someplace, made a hair appointment, booked it in your calendar. It's world changing. I mean, this is stage one. Imagine this 24 months from now. And it also has implications on employment and jobs types. But we have actually found somebody who's willing to come out here and take a risk. Chong Huan, why don't you come on out with your team? They're going to show you what can be done with that kind of concept in a real estate scenario. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for agreeing to do this.
Now again, before the demo, this is a fictitious company that we're going to show you. Of course, our lawyers will not be happy. I'd like to give you a quick introduction. First thing first, Inland Real Estate Group. We are a REIT-sponsored company. And on top of that, we have 1031 business. And we are also a small bank, inland bank in the Midwest. And we also provide institutional services like pension plans or endowment. They like to buy office buildings, we help them, and we manage for them. So with that said, then we have a lot of systems that, like you, have in your organization. We have Argus, we have Cougar, we have JD AdWords, we have Salesforce, you name it, we have them all. So what we have been trying to is to able to figure out how to help the business. We know that the brand is now an experience. IT should have good experience. And then product is now becoming a service. So with that in mind, we kind of struggle. So like all of us in this room, I'm sure, we have what they call spreadsheets. And then we ventured into something called Tableau. Business intelligence, and then now we're going to shift more towards Power BI, and so on and so forth, all right, for analytics. But what we have found is this, that we come up with a solution, and only for certain people, voice analytics is very important. Okay, we're going to tell you a little bit of why, and a little bit of how we do it. And why is because user experience, productivity, of course, single source of truth. Right? Otherwise, we'll be chasing everybody in different departments to get the right data. So why do we use it? And then when do we use it? Let's say you sit, in a car and you heard the news that Sears are closing stores. So you have to figure out, how many do we have in our shopping mall situation? So you use your Alexa, and you get into your car and you can ask for that, or you cannot sleep at night. You can talk to Alexa and find out a little bit about, hey, what is the pipeline for our leasing and so on and so forth. So that is when, and that's where, okay. And then how do we do this? Of course, our budgets are quite low. We want to make sure that we, when milk is cheap, you don't buy a cow. So we have a lot of things that are already out there. So how do we integrate them together, all right? With that, this is a demo. And if you want to hear more, tomorrow, 2 to 3, we have a 1-hour session. And please come. And I know it's the last sessions. I just don't know why Jim Young loves us so much. They put us right at the back of it. Okay. But I know what he's thinking. The best for last, all right? So again, ladies and gentlemen, the demo.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. So we would like to show you a quick demo of our product by running a few scenarios, running through a fictional company that we're calling it as Blue Real Estate. So Casey, go ahead.
Thank you. Alexa, open Blue Real Estate.
Welcome to Blue Real Estate. Please authenticate yourself. Authentication successful. You can now ask questions.
Give me portfolio flash briefing.
Portfolio flash briefing. You have 207 properties, 160 retail and 47 residential. Occupancy is 87%, and average rent per square feet is $28. 2 properties, Yuma City Retail and Walgreens in Wisconsin, were discussed in the investment committee meeting. 2 anchor tenant leases are expiring soon in your properties in Illinois.
How many properties we own in the state of Illinois?
In the state of Illinois, you have 28 properties, 13 retail and 15 residential. Average occupancy in Illinois is 82%. Rockford Crossings is the best performing property in the state.
Tell me about the property Rockford Crossing.
Summary for Rockford Crossings. It is a 118,000 square feet retail property, located with heavy traffic of East State Street and North Mill Road, in the heart of Rockford's retail quarter. Shadow anchored by Target, this power center has TJ Maxx, DSW, GameStop, Hobby Lobby and Aldi as the top tenants.
Give me rapid fire updates.
Rapid fire updates. Get ready to drink from a fire hose. Properties 222, units 1,600, occupancy 87%, month-to-date sales 80 million, vacant units 25, pipeline leasing deals 35, under legal review 12, properties sold this month 3, acquired this month 7, account receivable 600,000, accounts payable 250,000, MFFO 800,000. Oh my God, you make me work so hard. Can I get a higher paycheck?
We can talk about it later, but what's your advice for everyone at Realcomm?
Realcomm is celebrating 20 years anniversary, and it will be a wonderful learning experience. I hope you all have a great conference. But remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Good luck.
Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage co-CEO JLL Spark, Mihir Shah.
Thanks. It's great to be here. I'm excited. Good morning. So I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to try to get all of you into the mindset of what it feels like to start a technology company, of what it feels like to be part of a startup. So to do that, I'm going to take you back to MIT in 1994, where I was an undergrad. And I believe I had my first startup experience then. So I entered a robot design contest, because I suppose that's the sort of thing you do there. And my teammate was actually Ishai Lerner, who's in the audience, who's actually now my co-CEO of JLL Spark. So on the first day of this contest, they hand you a box. And the box has a bunch of Legos, some gears, sensors, a microprocessor board. And the objective is to take all of that stuff and build an autonomous robot that would compete against other robots based on a set of rules. Now, the people who were sponsoring the contest, I think it was Microsoft and Motorola at the time, they introduced us to this design concept called KISS, which stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. Now, in all of our youthful exuberance, we decided to do the exact opposite. We decided to take every single part in this box and try to build a robot that took advantage of all the rules, all the rules in this competition, breaking them, I think, almost to some extent, and try to get a competitive advantage, try to win. So we start building this robot, and we're on day 2, day 5, day 10, and we really just can't get this thing to work, right? Around day 17, we're getting really nervous. We're going to embarrass ourselves in front of all our peers, right? We're iterating, working around the clock, just doesn't work. So we get to around day 29, and finally this thing starts showing some signs of life. It starts doing what it's supposed to. And on day 30, which is the day of the competition, it works almost flawlessly for about 20 rounds, and we win. And that's really what happened. I didn't make this up just for Realcomm. That's just kind of how it went, right? And I think that was really my first startup experience. And I'm going to show you a little video to give you a sense of what that actually felt like.
Finally, after hours of grueling competition, one team emerged victorious.
I don't think I've ever worked so hard on anything in my life. I have not slept. I've spent 36 hours straight in lab without ever seeing sunlight or anything. Yeah, there were points in the morning when I couldn't even talk. It was just like I was. Once you did make it to sleep, sometimes we basically never moved until somebody hit us.
Okay, so tad grainy, tad embarrassing. I did really wear those glasses back then, but I think it really captures the spirit and the passion that goes into creating a technology company and a startup. So in the 22 years that I've been in Silicon Valley since MIT, I have started, built, invested in, advised a number of startups. And I can tell you that it really feels like those 30 days, except that it's actually a few years of iteration and testing and roller coaster rides and struggle. And at the end, you don't necessarily win. In fact, most of the times, you don't win. Now, in my 12 months in this industry, looking at technology startups, I can tell you that it's even harder than what I've seen in those 22 years in Silicon Valley. Probably 3 to 5 times as difficult to be a technology entrepreneur in this industry. So I have a lot of respect for people that are technology entrepreneurs in this industry. But that said, I'm really optimistic about the future of technology in this industry and the future of how technology can transform this industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about transformation and technology-based transformation. And I'm not going to talk about the Model T disrupting the horse, but I am going to talk about transportation. That's why I put that up there, because I just love that image. So it was early 2010. And I was standing outside my house in San Francisco with one of these. And I clicked a button on an app and called a black car to come pick me up. And Ishai, who was my business partner at the time, was in the other car, making sure that he got the message and the directions correctly. And he came and picked me up. Now, it turns out that we were working with, at the time, a 4-person company. The company was called Uber Cab LLC. And today, you all know that company as Uber. And obviously, it's had a pretty transformative impact on transportation. Now, I'd be lying if I told you that we knew how big Uber was going to be back then. And we were very fortunate to be able to work with them. But what we did know is there was something inherently magical about that experience. If you've ever been to San Francisco pre-ride sharing, and you've stood in the fog or the rain in a corner trying to flag down a cab, right? And you've fought with other people to get into this cab, and then when you get to your destination, you're shuffling to get cash out because the cabbie says, I don't take credit cards, right? And you compare that experience to this experience that Uber built, and it's truly magical. It's absolutely transformational. And what's really exciting is we're starting to see the seeds of technology that can be truly transformational, just like that, in this industry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, what are the characteristics of a transformational technology, right? A lot of you out there are trying to evaluate this avalanche of technologies coming at you, and the question is, what's sustainable? What's going to be around, right? So there are a lot of characteristics, but I'm going to talk about 3. So the first is magic, right? This is just like that Uber experience. So if you look at the expression on the faces of those kids, they're watching a magic show. It's just pure delight and awe. And I feel that when you get a demo of a technology product that is truly transformational, that is the expression that you have. You're just delighted, right? So what does that mean practically when you look at products in this industry? Well, it could be many things. You look at the user interface and you say, wow, this is so simple and easy to use. You may look at the deployment and say, I can't believe how easy this is to get out there and get into the world. You may look at some amazing insight that this provides you from all the data that's hanging around your company. There are many different ways, but there usually is some element of magic in a transformational technology. The second is value. It's great to have magic, but at the end of the day, there has to be value. We see a lot of products here that have anecdotal ROI, anecdotal value. But what we really want, what we're really looking for is quantifiable value. And quantifiable sort of repeatably over many, many customers. And the third is scale, right? So it's great to have magic, it's great to have value, but we also see, at least so far, a lot of bespoke products, a lot of custom products. In order to be truly transformation, you need to scale. You need to scale your platform, your technology platform. You need to scale your deployment. In the end, of course, you need to scale your business model and your unit economics. Now, what's really great is we're starting to see these 3 elements, magic, value, and scale, coming together into a set of products that are making some very interesting things possible. Such as, what if this building that generates all this data from existing systems or from new IoT devices, all this data could be taken by an algorithm which basically figures out how to save you 5% in operating costs each year for the next 10 years. And it does it while getting smarter and smarter every day, right? That would be amazing. Or, what if you could type in the address of a building into a box, click a button, and a piece of software goes out there and just collects public and private data and spits out an underwriting spreadsheet in seconds, right? Imagine the possibilities of that. What if you could trade shares in a building as easily as you trade stock today? What's really, really great is we're starting to see entrepreneurs that are planting the seeds of these experiences today. But in order to help them, in order to get them basically to the next level, to get them to be a transformational product, what I see is I see tech startups on one side, and I see a lot of you in the room that are investors of real estate, occupiers, service providers, sort of on the other side, right? And we believe that there needs to be this bridge between the two to really get the tech startups, the trials that they need, to get the feedback from the people on this side that have experienced in the industry. And what we're doing in Spark, and our mission, is to really be that bridge, to be that connector. That's what we're passionate about, and that's what we try to do every day. Now, to that end, obviously, from a startup perspective, one thing they need is capital, right? Capital so that if you're on the other side, you see that they're going to be around for a while. So really excited to announce, just yesterday, we announced a new Spark Global Venture Fund. This is a $100 million fund targeted at early stage tech companies that are doing everything from improving real estate development and investment to leasing and managing to try to improve the experience of those who occupy it, right? So we're very excited about that. But as you all well know, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of money, there's more venture capital flowing in this industry. That's not enough. If you're really going to build that bridge effectively, you need to do more than just offer money, right? So to that end, what we're doing is we're building something that we call a growth team, right? And this growth team is staffed with experienced product marketers, and business development people, and they're going to be held accountable for how these tech startups get through to the people on the other side, and how these trials work, and how the feedback goes back and forth, and how much the product's actually adopted. And another idea that we're working on is something we call building labs. And this is basically saying, look, let's take the top metros in the world, let's designate a few buildings per metro as labs, if you will, places where we can fast track technology from the new and emerging companies in the space, right? Help them get through those difficult deployment cycles and the sales cycles, and help you, if you're trying to make a decision on these technologies, to get the feedback quickly, to understand where the value is, or whether this is something that has the magic, or is this something that's going to scale. Obviously, these ideas can be implemented by many people in this room. You know, it's not just us that are working on this. And I firmly believe that in order for this industry to truly take advantage of the technology-based transformation and to truly have that transformation be a positive force for the industry, it's going to take all of us working together, no matter what side of the bridge you are today. And so we at Spark are looking forward to working with many of you in the audience today in the next few years to make that transformation a possibility. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Jim Young and Howard Berger, joined by managing partner Realcomm, Lisa Woods.
All right, well, we are coming to the end of our general session. We decided to add something pretty special this year. Been brewing for about 20 years. Most of you know we have our Digi Awards. Since 1999, we've been acknowledging all those people who really take the risks, get knocked down, stand back up. Because it was 20, we decided we wanted to do something pretty special and create a new award called the Lifetime Achievement Award. The Lifetime Achievement Award is got some criteria, and it took us a long time to come up with this criteria, and let me just read through it. Worked in the real estate, the technology, or the real estate technology industry for 20 plus years, very important, have demonstrated vision, have given back, willing to take risks, and has had an impact. So what we're going to do is we're going to read a phrase, see if you can guess who it is. We're going to show you a picture circa 1999. That should be a better clue. And then when we announce their name, they know that they've won, but they don't know who the other 20 are, or other 19. So as we announce their name, they're going to be proceeding, and we're going to put them up on stage. And when we're done, we're going to give them the best round of applause we can possibly muster, because these people have laid the foundation for the new generation. They put the foundation. These people have allowed this room to now build walls and put the roof on. We really appreciate what they have done over the last 20 years for our industry, and we hope you feel the same. So with that, we're going to get started. A thoughtful, smart, and universally well-liked IT executive managing a global portfolio. He's always been in front of the curve and willing to share his insight and experience with others. Probably looks familiar. Jesse Carril. Come on up, Jesse.
He has a sustained passion and vision for smart buildings, which inspired a major corporation to establish a global smart building cities program. Dave Klug.
A long-time and consistent advocate for continuous improvement, for leadership roles at a multitude of major organizations, has left a mark globally. Maureen Ehrenberg.
An early developer of real estate software, he was the first to deploy the concept of Building Operations Center and remains one of the industry's most respected CIOs. Robert Enton.
At the forefront of the next generation of smart buildings, his journey started with 55 Broad Street in New York City. John Gilbert.
As a major force in corporate real estate and facilities, his early vision, commitment, and willingness to take risks continues to influence innovation in the industry.
Mark Golan is not here.
Mark Golan.
But we'll be getting the award to him. One of the industry's most notable and recognized CIOs, his influence within an international organization delivered innovation at a global scale, Don Goldstein.
An international powerhouse behind some of the most visionary and successful smart building projects. His tenaciousness and persistence are legendary. Harry Gunninsingham.
Her vision and worldview, coupled with her passion for improvement, setting of higher benchmarks, and unrelenting drive, has influenced market leaders around the globe. Thelma Wong.
As an influential New York City CIO, his forward-thinking and passion for continuous improvement has left his mark not only in Manhattan, but around the globe. Sandy Jackalow.
He almost single-handedly changed the skyline of Toronto's residential towers from an analog model to one that is more intelligent and connected. Ted Malucci.
In 2004, he spoke of machine learning and building equipment predicting failure, and as a CIO, consultant, writer, he's always been a true visionary in our industry. Scott Morey.
Pragmatic and visionary, authentic, consistent, thorough, he built one of the most capable next-generation master system integration companies in the world, Paul Oswald.
Through multiple roles in the smart building marketplace, his consistent and persistent drive for building efficiency has indelibly influenced the industry. John Petsy.
Extremely bright, consistent, and an unparalleled communicator. He has significantly impacted the industry as a respected CIO and consultant. Wayne Pryor.
He is one of the most consistent, visionary, and thoughtful CIOs in New York City, who continues to leave his imprint on major real estate companies and landmark projects. Joe Rich.
Starting with a grand vision and a tenacious attitude, he was one of the first to apply software-driven smart building concepts to a massive corporate campus. Daryl Smith.
Steadfast, curious, patiently impatient, always willing to share, collaborate, setting the benchmark for CIOs in our industry. Jim Whalen.
He began with a vision, a DOS platform, and turned a basic property management program into a globally respected real estate enterprise platform. Anit Yardi.
His consistent focus on technology, automation, and innovation for industrial real estate continues to bring about strategic change in this important sector. Scott Zimmerman.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the past, present, and future of our industry with a resounding thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We are so thrilled that you are here joining us for our 20th anniversary conference. Enjoy the next 2 days. Please let us know if we can do anything for you, answer any questions. Visit our exhibit hall, see all the great things that we have out there. Download the mobile app and join us tonight at 6 o'clock for the Digi Award ceremony in the conference exhibit hall. and have a great, great conference. Thank you so much for being here.